here to play 5 questions on Penny Hardaway's Tigers with CJ Hurt. CJ's in charge of the questions. I'm in charge of the answers. Let's get started with question number 1.
All right, question number 1, Gary. What did you make of the Tigers' 80-68 win over Tulsa?
It was a nice performance. You know, they handled business. They didn't shoot the ball well from 3. They really didn't get much from their bench, but they still win the game by double digits and avoided what would have been a quadrant 4 loss. And like we've talked about before, I know this sounds simple and perhaps stupid, but there's only 2 outcomes to a basketball game. You win it or you lose it. So these wins that they're getting, for the most part during this winning streak, they're not helpful in the sense that they're going to get you on SportsCenter or lead Inside College Basketball on CBS Sports Network. But if they weren't wins, they'd be losses. And if they were losses, they would be bad losses. This would have been, at Tulsa, a quadrant 4 loss. So to be able to avoid that is obviously beneficial as it pertains to trying to build an NCAA tournament resume. So that's 5 wins in a row for Memphis. And the Tigers are still just 1 game back of Houston in the AAC standings. KenPom still has Houston projected to win the league comfortably by 3 games. But at least for now, this is a legitimate conference race, and it looks like it'll likely come down to Houston and Memphis.
Question number 2, a couple of teams that the Tigers have hung their hats on from a resume standpoint suffered some losses this weekend. What does that Tigers resume look like right now as of today?
It's solid. Like, obviously, if you're a Memphis fan, you want Alabama to win every game after you played Alabama close down in Tuscaloosa. So Alabama going to Oklahoma and losing by 24 points is not helpful, but at this point that kind of stuff is pretty minimal. Right now, the Tigers' resume sort of exists on its own, and it's pretty solid. Like, they're 17-5 overall, 7-2 in the AAC, 1-2 in quadrant 1, 5-3 in quadrant 2 with 0 additional losses. So that's 6-5 into the first 2 quadrants with 0 losses outside of the first 2 quadrants. Put simply, as somebody who looks at this stuff every day, I can tell you that if you are above 500 in the first 2 quadrants with 0 bad things in quadrant 3 or quadrant 4, you've got a pretty good resume. Some notable teams, like this might surprise some people. Here are some notable teams in the country that are not above 500 in the first 2 quadrants. Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, Indiana, Creighton, West Virginia, Arkansas, Ohio State, Providence, Iowa, Maryland. I mean, the first 4 I mentioned are blue blood basketball programs, 3 of which were picked to win their league. North Carolina was picked to win the ACC. Indiana was picked to win the Big Ten. And Kentucky was picked to win the SEC. None of those schools right now are above 500 in the first 2 quadrants, but Memphis is. Now, the Tigers only having 1 quadrant 1 win. That's not ideal, but being above 500 in the first 2 quadrants with 0 additional losses is not a bad place to be, you know, this deep into the season. It's why I've got Memphis at number 23 in my top 25 and 1 that I do every morning for CBS Sport. It's a good team with a solid body of work. They've largely done a nice job of avoiding bad losses. They just got to keep doing it.
Been trying to figure out who that one is. It's Auburn, right? The 1 quad 1 win?
The 1 quad 1 win would be the Auburn win. Yes, that's right.
Just wanted to make sure. Third question. Kendrick Davis, now the leader for American Athletic Conference Player of the Year?
If he's not, he's got to be getting close. He is playing at an extremely high level. As you know, Kendrick Davis is the reigning AAC Player of the Year, but Marcus Sasser was the preseason AAC Player of the Year, and that might be confusing for people who are unfamiliar. Marcus Sasser, best player, lead guard at Houston, only played a handful of games last season before he shut it down in December with an injury. But in that small sample size, he was off the charts. It looked like a first-team All-American. And so when you factor in Houston was going to be a preseason top 5 team, and Marcus Sasser, when he played last season, looked like a first-team All-American, I actually agreed that even though the reigning AAC Player of the Year was back in school, the preseason AAC Player of the Year should have been Marcus Sasser. But as we sit here on January 30th, whatever gap there was between those 2 players as it pertained to trying to win that award has closed considerably. You know, Kendrick was awesome again against Tulsa. He had 26 points. He's now scored at least 20 in 5 straight games. He's averaging 21.5 points, 6.0 assists, 3.8 rebounds, 2.0 steals per game. So he is averaging, Kendrick Davis is right now, more points, assists, rebounds, and steals per game than Marcus Sasser. Their shooting percentages, at least from the field, are similar. So right now, really, I don't want to say the only thing, but certainly the most obvious thing that Marcus Sasser has going for him right now over Kendrick Davis is that he's the best player on a top 5 team, and Kendrick Davis is not. But statistically, Kendrick Davis has been having the better season. And it's not just empty numbers. He's impacting winning. He is doing this for a quality basketball team. I think if I were voting AAC Player of the Year right now today, I would probably vote Kendrick Davis.
All right, fourth question. How much is what Kendrick Davis is doing is overshadowing what DeAndre Williams is doing?
A lot, because DeAndre Williams is having the best season of his college career, and he's already had a really nice college career. He's averaging a career best 16.7 points, career high 7.7 rebounds per game. And if you go look at the KenPom Player of the Year ratings for the American Athletic Conference, it's a complicated algorithm, but it does spit out names. And the 5 best players in the AAC, according to that KenPom algorithm, are Marcus Sasser, Kendrick Davis, Jarris Walker, DeAndre Williams, and Jawan Roberts in that order. So I don't think DeAndre Williams is going to be able to win AAC Player of the Year because his teammate is probably going to win it. And if not, then Marcus Sasser is probably going to win it. But everything else is on the table. Like, I could certainly see him being first team All-Conference. That seems likely. And even sneaking into like an honorable mention All-American place. Some of that will be reliant on team success. Like, the Tigers are going to have to continue to win, move up in the computers, move up in the rankings for DeAndre to get that kind of attention. But statistically, he is having a really, really fine college basketball season. It's just not what Kendrick Davis is doing, but it's as good as just about anybody else in the American Athletic Conference.
All right, lastly, get you out of here on this. What's next for the Tigers?
So there's no midweek game this week. They don't play again until Saturday, and that game's going to be at home against Tulane. So it's an opportunity to avenge that New Year's Day loss down in New Orleans. More important than that, it's a Quad 3 game. It's the first of 3 straight Quadrant 3 games. So it's another game Memphis really needs to not lose. Like we've talked about, and this is the case for most of their games at this point in the season, the wins won't help you, but the losses can hurt you. And so hopefully they'll get another nice week of practice and handle business on Saturday. For what it's worth, KenPom projects Memphis to win that game on Saturday, 86-77. So barring a surprise, this time next week, the Tigers should be on a 6-game winning streak.